It's not coming, it's already here. What is it? It's your moment. The crucible that will reveal whether you're ready for the ride or destined for defeat. Your competition was built for Easy Street. Well, it ain't Mr. Rogers' neighborhood anymore. It's time for your entrepreneur side to strap in and hold tight. You have the tools, the training, and the technology. Command the moment, charge the storm. It's your time to thrive.
Please welcome to the stage, Gary Keller.
So we're going to look at the U.S. and we're going to look at Canada. So we're going to go through 7 things real quickly as it relates to the United States. First thing is home sales. So, and remember again, you're going to get all of this. Our goal is, number one, to make you the economist of choice. We want you to be the smartest person in your market. We want you to be the go-to person for your clients. And the way you do that is you understand the industry better than anyone else. So the first thing we want to look at is home sales. And our goal today is not only to tell you kind of where you are, but more importantly, we want to put it all in perspective for you. So that, right, because the number one thing that your clients don't have is they don't have real perspective. They really don't. The reason is because they get their information from just their experience and they get it from the news. And the news isn't about perspective, okay? So, let's just talk about home sales real quickly, and you can see what happened, right? Honestly, if you look at the last 5 years, this is the second biggest 5 years in the history of the industry, meaning that we've had a nice run. However, I also want you to notice that between 21 and 22, you dropped by 1.1 million transactions. That, by the way, is the second largest drop in 1 year in recorded history. So if it felt like you were falling off a cliff, news for you. You did. Mm-hmm. You did. You fell off the second highest cliff in recorded history. Okay? And you ended the year closing around 5 million transactions. Now, this will give you even a better sense of what really happened. And if you look at this, you'll realize that we started the year, just go to January 22, find that number, 6.5, and you realize we started the year on a massive high. We were rocking and we were rolling. And the government looked up, and what did they say?
Time to hit the brakes.
Time
to hit the inflation, and they hit the brakes hard.
Things are too expensive. Inflation is going out of control. And the theme that you're going to hear from us today over and over is that inflation is the number one enemy of a democracy. Because if inflation is rampant, those who have more get more, and those who have less get less. And it literally creates this massive divide. It just gets wider and wider. So the government eventually, in a democracy like the US and Canada, by the way, the government looks up and says, we're going to stop that. And eventually they will stop it at all costs. So I was talking to Molly Fletcher backstage yesterday, and she was just talking about our business. And I said, well, just realize that any business where the cost of money is involved gets hurt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, quickly. It changes quickly when they start mucking with that level.
Sure, it can change extremely quickly. We want you to notice, so the other thing about this slide, what we want you to notice is where you ended the year. So the average was 5, but where did you end the year?
We ended right at 4, Gary, and if you look on that slide, that when COVID happened and we locked everything down, that's where home sales fell to at that point. So that gives you some perspective on like just how far sales have kind of trended off.
Yes, we ended the year at 4, so if you go back and look at that, you understand where you got to. You ended the year right back where you were in around 2008. My apologies. My esteemed partner, Jay Papazan, our chief economist, Ruben, and our esteemed head of learning and industry, my partner, Jason Abrams. Sorry about that.
So, Gary, I think the only other thing they need to know is, like, we're projecting 4.25 million sales this year. Nobody's got a crystal ball, but if you look at the next slide, the last quarter, right, this is kind of where we need to be making adjustment with sales in that range. It's going to get a little bit better, we hope, by the second half of the year.
That's right. Yeah, the projections say that we're probably going to do about 4.2 to 4.3 million in transactions, and that'll put you right back at the bottom of the Great Recession.
Right, so if you haven't made any adjustments to your business yet, your model, your expenses.
You better make them. Now, before you start crying and immediately texting your spouse going, we're screwed, we're going to get to a money slide in about 30 minutes, and you're going to get a big grin on your face, and I'll cue you when to smile.
But there is a silver lining.
There actually is. So hang in there with us, okay? But this is the reality, okay? All right, so we go to home prices. Well, this is the story. Everything is being driven by that number, meaning everything the government is doing is being driven by this number. What we want you to always pay attention to is what we call the 4% trend line. And the 4% trend line is simply, over time, the economic pressures of supply, demand, and costs keep real estate on about a 4% average appreciation trend line. And you can see that you go back to the run-up to the Great Recession, right, in 05, 06, you were 21% above the trend line. And you were, what's the number, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, you were 8 years above that trend line, okay? Now, you go to today, and people say things are way overpriced, but you're only 12% above the trend line. Relatively speaking, it's not as expensive as it was back in 05 and 06. Interesting aha, yes? It is. You go, oh, I didn't know that. Wow, that's interesting. So by the way, the trend line would put us at 357, right? They project that it would be 382, but here's the interesting thing about that. Look where you ended the year. Again, let your eyes adjust to the colors. Go to the purple one, go to the far right, and you see that number 367? That was the median home price at the end of the year. So in December, that's where you were. Go backwards. What would be the 4% trend line? Say 357. So you ended the year actually, factually, only $10,000 above the 4% trend line, okay? Any comments on that, fellas?
Yeah, Gary, so one thing to note there is that we expect to see that downward trend continue for the first half of this year. So don't be surprised if, this month or next month you start to see year-over-year declines when the NAR numbers come out. But we think that that's going to start to hopefully change a little bit in the second half. The worst news is going to come in the first 6 months of this year, most likely for our industry.
Yeah, so another way to think about this is if you went for about 4 more years and prices did not appreciate, you would be right back at the 4% trend line. That's another way to think about that. Another way to think about it is if prices drop by 1% and you have the 4% trend line, you would end the year at only 7% above the trend line.
Well, so is it accidental that we always end up with this 4% trend line, or are there forces at play that keep us there? Because you could build an investment model around it. You can set your watch by it at this point.
The 4%? You should. Remember, the investing is always a long game. It's not a short game, right? Yeah, there's no we were talking about this backstage, there's no get rich quick. Right? People think, particularly in the last couple of years, if you just woke up and you'd lived on another planet and you woke up on planet Earth and this was your experience for the last 3 years, you'd go, oh my gosh, this is unbelievable. Cheap money, soaring prices. It's easy to get rich in real estate.
I'm a genius.
I'm a genius. Yeah, that's exactly, I'm a genius. But Jay, you were telling us that, or reminding us that when we did the research on getting rich quick,
On getting rich quick, I mean,
businesses,
I think Jason said the only way to get rich quick is to inherit money or maybe commit a criminal
plan.
act.
I'm trying to be adopted, as you know. And yes, that's the model.
But this is one of the most provable ways to do it long term. It's not fast, but it's a get wealthy for sure plan.
Yeah, but I threw out at you a couple of years ago, I threw out the idea that, well, what about if you started a business and you came back with the research and said what?
Oh gosh, now you're
12 years. You said it took 12 years.
So that was that energy drink.
Hang on, let him. He's back on the planet with me. I'm feeding him softballs.
I know the get rich quick. When a business blows up, we did the research, and on average, they'd already been in business for 12 years when they were an overnight success. Thank you for.
Yeah. So this idea. Well, I mean, it's important. Thank you for that information because it puts it all in perspective. This idea of get rich quick. Actually, there's no such thing unless it's luck or, like you said, an inheritance or something. There's no other way to get it fast. It's slow and steady wins the race. Have a nice day.
No, and I don't know anybody that makes a ton of money that doesn't work.
Right.
Yep.
Exactly. All right. One last thing on prices. No, that's it. Sorry. There is no other thing to say on prices. Okay, so here's that other slide, and I think this is a really great slide. Again, our job is to put as much on one sheet of paper to confuse you as quickly as possible. That's just standard. We have it written over the door. It's what we do. But I want you to go, all you have to do is go right to the 20 to 22 and see that 12.49%, and you go, oh, okay. In recorded history, we've never had a run-up in prices like that. The answer is no, you haven't. If you take into account what they think will happen in 2023, it would average 9.1. If nothing else happened and prices didn't appreciate, it would take you 4 more years and you'd be back on the trend line if prices didn't appreciate. Okay? Make sense? Yeah. This has been a remarkable run-up.
Some people look at that and they ask if it's a bubble. One thing we'll hit is that lending standards are tight. The median FICO credit score is like 770. So like people that are buying these homes, even in these appreciating, are very, very qualified to keep them. It's not like the last one where there was a lot of loose lending.
Yeah, here's what I would tell someone if I'm out in the world talking to people about buying and selling real estate. I would show them this graphic and I would say, the fool is the person that didn't own real estate. The fool is the person. And you know, I've told this story before, but when I got in real estate in 1979, interest rates were below 10%. And interest rates within like a year period they actually peaked out at 18%. 18%, by the way. What's fascinating is I had a couple in my car. And my little Volkswagen Beetle, by the way. And we're looking at houses and we're just talking. We're driving to go look at houses and we're just talking. And I'm asking, I'd got them in a way that I was getting to know them in the car. Okay, so we're chatting, and they bring up the fact that they've been looking for houses, been thinking and looking for 3 years. And I went.
You just wanted to stop the car and turn around?
I did. I went, do you have any idea what you cost yourself by screwing around for 3 years? I mean, and they had no idea, right? Because people do not buy and sell based on economics as much as they do based on what's going on in their life. And that still holds true today, by the way. It really does. All right, next slide. So total market volume. So this is one of those slides that you need to pay attention to because you're sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, we're going to go back to production levels of 09 and 2010 based on numbers of transactions. But here's the gift of appreciation, and that is the volume of business that is predicted to occur this year would be the 3rd highest in recorded history. Oh, by the way, the other 2 highest were the previous 2 years. Meaning that for all the bad news, for all the, oh my gosh, the sky is falling, you look up and you go, no, you're most likely going to be in the neighborhood of the third greatest year in the history of real estate in terms of total volume at over $2 trillion.
But you've got to get your unfair share for that to be real for you.
Well, we're going to, later in this morning, we'll talk about the number of transactions per person and how that gets affected. But when you look at the total volume that is available to be handled, this is most likely going to end up being around the third best year in recorded history.
You know, if all we did was put up this slide and we would have skipped the first 7, everyone would be celebrating right now. If this was your only perspective, you'd be dancing in the street.
You're exactly right. Had I walked in and said, good morning, we're only going to take a minute, we don't want to waste your time because we know you got a lot of real estate transactions to do. We just want to point out that you're fixing to have the third greatest year in volume sold in American history. Right? And you would all go, heck yeah, man, let's crush this. And then you look at all the other slides and you go, ooh, it's really bad. It's really bad. Yeah, I mean, it is. Make no mistake about it. I mean, I believe that no matter, in spite of that volume, I truly believe that 2023 will be a really tough year. It will be very, very hard. It will be hard. And if you don't work hard to match the hard, your year's going to suck. It will. I mean, it will. I mean, I said it yesterday, but I've been through this 7 times, according to Jay. And what I notice is that there are people that don't do anything different than they were doing during the good times. You can't do that. When times get hard, you have to ramp it up. You have no choice.
I think that was Molly's thing, right? The best athletes that she worked with were the ones that embraced change and then changed their behaviors to match the moment.
Yep,
That's right.
That's it. Absolutely. Yep. So then we have the inventory issue, and this is the other. As we all know, we have a problem. We'll show a slide later, but there's 4 million homes missing that we never built, right? Coming out of the Great Recession, and because of that, we didn't have enough inventory, and we're not catching up, and this is a problem. So when you look at the month's supply, it's extremely low, right? Historically low because of that. Now, we overlaid, because our goal is to be as complex as possible, we overlaid that, because we always ask the question, well, what's the context? So we overlaid that with appreciation. And what you notice is days on market goes up in direct proportion to prices going down. Why? Because it becomes a buyer's market, right? And when you have a seller's market, the more seller's market you have what?
Appreciation.
More appreciation, prices go up, right? So it's just a simple slide that's just, again, as realtors, we need to understand this at multiple levels. We understand this, right?
What this also says that prices aren't going to fall off a cliff. There's not a lot of inventory, so there's still pressure from supply and demand for prices to be competitive, even though the Fed is cranking up the interest rates on us, right?
Man, guys, that's the problem.
Yeah.
The problem is we have so little supply that here's what the Fed, the problem they have. They want to reduce the interest rate. They're not evil, people. They want to reduce the cost of money. But their fear is because of that low supply, the second they get back quickly into affordability, bam, people will rush out to start buying, and what will happen to prices? They will skyrocket overnight.
I think they're right. I think that's exactly what would happen.
Well, and that's the problem. So everyone who says, oh, I think it's going to turn around this year, how? I don't think it is. I don't think it's, if you want to have a great year, you can have a great year. Not everybody's going to have one. If you want it, you can have it, right? Equal reward, unequal opportunity is this industry. There's plenty of business there, right? Notice, however, so this is what's important about this graph is if you go to the purple, which is last year, and go to the end at 2.9, you see that was the months of inventory. What we want you to notice is go back and realize that the 6 previous months there was no seasonal adjustment. See, if you look at the other 2 years, what's important is notice how the numbers go down, the months of inventory go down, right? You notice that? Say yes. Yeah, you can see it going down month over month all the way to December. What you noticed last year is that did not happen. Okay? Which means it's probably going up.
And that's a good thing.
And that, honestly, that's kind of a good thing. Because when you think about, when you think about months of inventory, remember in the United States, it's 6 months of inventory is considered a balanced market. Now, if you've been living in a average time on market 1 week, and then you get to 6 months, you think the sky is falling. You think there's something wrong. But the reality is, over time, 6 months is considered, in the United States, is considered balanced market.
But the consumer's perspective around this has all wildly changed also. My mom called me a couple weeks ago and said, she's in Canasta. She said her friend Barbara, who's in Canasta, her daughter listed her home. It's been 3 days and it hasn't sold. And if I needed a loan, she would give me one. And that's how she thinks about the world. If the house doesn't sell in a week, there's a problem.
Someone posted a Facebook story, maybe it was Haro, our friend, like 10 years ago. It was Fedek, Matt Fedek. He used to put billboards up saying, I could sell your home in 120 days or less. So just perspective, folks.
The super agent.
Yeah, well, that's the truth. That's absolutely right. So here's the story, right? Because the Fed only has a couple of things they can do. Policy is one thing. Changing the cost of money is the other. So think of the cost of money as the brake that the federal government can use to stop commerce. And that is just drive up the cost of money. So that's what they did. Now, again, go back, and I always point this out because it's my truth, and that is I got out and went into real estate in 1979. And within a 12-month period, interest rates had gone all the way to 18%. Okay? And I watched a lot of people get out of the business. I watched them go sit on the sideline, put their head in the sand, and here's what they said. Why would you buy a house at that interest rate? Well, news for them, a lot of people did. Mm-hmm. A lot of people still did business, by the way. They did. And by the way, those who bought houses at 18%, 10 years later had the last laugh. Why? Two things. Real estate appreciated and interest rates came down and they refinanced. And the appreciation overcame, overcame the cost of the extra interest over time. Over time. This is why perspective matters, because if you don't understand this and have this perspective, you're just a dumb realtor.
This is exactly...
Well, you're just dumb. Because you should, I want you to read these slides about 5 times. I want you to leave here, go back, print them, and have coffee or tea 5 times with a handful of realtors. And all you do is just do what we do. Go through the slides and take a few minutes and talk about each one. Do that, promise me. Do that 5 times, and then when you go out on the street and start talking to people, you will surprise yourself at the things that come out of your mouth. Mm-hmm. Right? You will even look in the mirror and go, who is this person? They're so smart.
This is exactly why we wrote the Mortgage Hacks course, which we're going to give to you later today with a code. But the reality was that there was a bunch of different ways to get people into the homes that they wanted to at the right rate, and then over time help them pay less. Because the strange thing is when people asked buyers, they did a poll and they said, well, why aren't you buying? And they said, well, I'm waiting for rates to come down. And the next question was, to what? And the average person said, to 3.
So the reality is, if you show them this slide, they're not going up, they're going back to normal.
Well, when are they going to be 3 again, Jay?
That 10-year period is crazy.
Yeah.
You're not going to see 3 in your lifetime. You're not going to see 3 in your lifetime. My guess is you will never see 4 in your lifetime.
Really?
And that's okay.
You just won't. I mean, you won't. You know, you may not see below 5 in your lifetime. You might. But I promise you, there's a lot of people that walk around and they go, oh, this is an aberration. Normal is the last 10 years. Look at the dadgum graph for a second. Does the last 10 years look normal to you? There's nothing normal about it. It was God's gift to you. Here, you've worked so hard in the wilderness for the last 30 years. I'm going to give you 10 good years. Don't squander them. Right? Yeah. And a lot of people just got dumber during that period instead of getting smarter. Right? But that's the reality. This is the reality slide, and it puts it in perspective. If you're not putting this slide in front of your buyers and sellers, you're making a mistake. They need to understand this slide. Then put the 4% trend line in front of them as well and say, this is no different than the stock market. Over time, it's going up. The sooner you get into that game, because you have all the young people going, oh, it's so expensive. You know, what should I do? And you're going, buy something.
But the guy on YouTube told me not to.
Yeah, exactly. The guy on YouTube told me not to. And oh, by the way, it's going to take 40% of my income. How am I going to afford those $25 bar drinks that me and my millennials have been enjoying?
Served in that coconut with the flag. And
yeah. Yeah, Mary and I went out to dinner with friends, and he ordered some sort of mixed drink, a Manhattan or something, I don't know what it was. And he ordered it, and the waiter turned back and said, you didn't mean the bloppity-blop. And he didn't know what he's talking about, but he went, sure, you know. Came back, he tasted it, he said, this is really good. And he got the bill, it was $25, and he had two of them. He paid $50 for 2 damn drinks. Now, if you're his age and you have his money, tubula boobala, it's $50. But I go into a restaurant and I see it lined up with young people drinking those drinks, and I'm going, fools, you should be buying real estate. And then inviting us over to your house to have lemonade. Right? This just gives you perspective again, and it lets you see that you realize that never in recorded history did interest rates double in 1 year. So you had interest rates double in 1 year, and you had the second, as a result, you had the second highest drop in number of transactions in a 12-month period. You had all that happen like that. And that's why last year kind of took your breath away. And what's really important to understand is that all occurred in the last 6 months of the year. That did not occur at the beginning of the year. It happened in the last 6 months, which makes it even more breathtaking, right? Yeah, yeah.
One thing here, Gary, to tie kind of this whole section together is one of the reasons we're not seeing, I think people are asking the question, well, why haven't prices fallen 10%? Why aren't there 6 to 8 months of inventory right now? Well, if you look back at that 2.74%, it's because there's a ton of people right now sitting on mortgages with below 3% rates, right? And 75% of buyers are all sellers too. So there's not this flood of inventory because they're going to have to buy on the other side of that, and they're looking up at that 7% mortgage rate and going, I think I'm going to wait. So we've got this lock-in effect that's kind of anchoring prices and anchoring inventory down a little bit right now in the short term.
So you need to talk to them into turning that into a rental and buying their next property.
Yep. So Treasury spread. The only thing we want you to understand here, this is not a butter that you put on your toast. It's this is the difference between Treasury bills and understand what mortgage rates are. And what they do is they literally build in a risk factor, right? So 1.7 is the typical, and then you notice that there's literally 1% above that. Don't geek out on it. The only thing we're telling you this is that without anything else happening, if the market gets comfortable with the economy, they could drop interest rates by 1% and has nothing to do with the government. Does that make sense? That's what this spread represents to you. Okay? So what happens to affordability? Well, look, right? When interest rates are down at 2-point-something%, with home prices recovering from the great drop-off, right? Of course, it looked like a no-brainer. And then you get to now and you go, oh my gosh, it's going to be 24, 26%. By the way, if you're a first-time home buyer, given the median income of a first-time home buyer and the median home price it will be 36%. In the United States, that's how they measure it. Okay?
36% of
your income.
Pre-tax.
Your entire pre-tax income.
Yeah, your pre-tax, that's right. It doesn't take into account the tax deductions you get in the United States, which would lower that significantly.
Well, so what do you say to the person who says, well, it sure seems like I'm working for my home. I'm going to work every day just for this house.
Yes, dummy. Yes, you should. You absolutely should. I mean, it's food and shelter. So first, you work for food, yes?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. I never heard you complaining about, man, I feel like I'm working for food. Dang straight you're working for food, fool. Of course you are. And if you're a millennial at the bar, food and drink.
Yes.
Right? But yeah, you're working for food. Simultaneously, you're working for shelter. Wake up, of course you are. And the crazy thing is, and we're going to show you a slide later, it's another one of those money slides that you're going to want to use, is you're doing it to lock in your cost of living. This idea that I'm going to flip a house every 2 years or 3 years, it's a fantasy land that only occurs every time the shooting stars go over, right? I mean, it doesn't happen that often. It's a long-term game. I was listening to one of my favorite podcasts, Pivot, with Scott Galloway, and out of nowhere I'm shaving, and Scott Galloway makes a statement. He's considered really one of the economic best economic thinkers, if you will, and marketing thinkers of our generation. And he goes, look, there's no question, it's been proven. He says, buying residential real estate and residential real estate historically is the best place to build wealth.
Yeah.
Well, I'm shaving, and this guy is saying this to everyone listening to his podcast, and you would expect him to take the side of the other, gurus who go, no, real estate, no. He's saying just the opposite. It has been proven to be the best long-term plan to build wealth. Duh. Have a nice day. And here's the reason why. It's because the second that prices go up on the houses and people say, I can't afford to buy, and they go rent, every greedy landlord in the room today will raise the rent on those suckers. Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes, you will. Yes, you will. Of course you will. So rent never doesn't, it never for very long has this disparity between what it costs to own and what it costs to rent. Because the second there's a big disparity, what do you think landlords do? Jack it up. Jack it up. Yeah. So there it is. That's the real number. But, again, if it were 60% of your income, yeah, do it. Yes, your answer should be do it. And they say, why? Because you're trying to lock in your cost of living. That's what you're doing, by the way. All right, look at Canada real quick. Go through the same numbers. Number one, home sales. Yep, declined just like the U.S. In fact, it was a bigger decline, right? Ours was 12, theirs was 25%. You look at home prices, wow. Now, these are Canadian dollars, by the way, but I want you to notice, look at Canada, look at that 4% trend line. I know y'all keep thinking we make this stuff up, but look at the trend line. They're living that trend line, and the same thing happened with COVID that happened in the United States. Now, these are Canadian dollars. And by the way, if you interpolate those into American dollars, then in 2022, the average price was $541. Compared to $367 at the end of the year for the United States. But here's an interesting thing about that, and that is 24% of the entire population of Canada lives in two cities, Toronto and Vancouver. Bill lives in both. He's got a foot in each. Yeah, 24% in just two cities. The average price, $626,000. By the way, if you drop out those two cities, it's 508. And we were doing an interpolation on that. And if you did that in US dollars, it would be
377. Yep.
377. So outside of those two cities, right? It'd be the same thing if you took California, Florida, New York, or Miami in particular, New York, and Hawaii, and set them aside and say, now tell me the median price in America. It would be significantly lower. Actually, you could just take out Austin, Texas, and it would be seriously lower, right? Yeah. Inventory is the same thing. They're in a little more of a balanced market than we are in. Mortgage rates, same thing happened to them. They ended the year at that, but they're right now at what, 7.6?
Yeah, they're in the 6.5% to 7%, just like we are, Gary.
Yeah. So the same exact thing. Affordability. Look at this. For a single family home, they call it a detached bungalow. You would pay 68% of your income to live in that house.
Now, they calculate it differently. They include utilities, everything, the total cost of owning that home.
Maintenance and everything. Yeah, they put that. In the U.S., we only use principal and interest. In Canada, because I believe Canadians are smarter, they actually use everything to represent the full cost. If it was a condo, it's 44%. By the way, and they do it. So when you're sitting here crying about your 24% or your 36%, realize that it could be much higher, and the drive and the need to own that real estate does not change. If anything, it gets more important, right? So let's look at the U.S. economy. And the four things we always look at is GDP, meaning are people spending money? Number two, are people employed? Number three, do they have any money? And number four, what's inflation doing to increase or decrease their buying power? So we always look at these four things, okay? But look at GDP. Remember, the number is 2. What the government wants is at least 2%. 3 is really great. You start getting 4 or higher, and it's massively overheating. Not a little bit, it's massively overheating. So look what happened, right? COVID hit in 2020, and it was so bad that even though the year recovered, the drop was so dramatic for that period of time that they still ended up with a negative GDP. But they made up for it the next year. Made up for it. And that's what happened. People went out and they spent and they spent and they spent. And by the way, they spent it on products, not services. Right? People sat in their home and they literally got on Amazon or whatever else, and they said, I'll buy that, I'll buy that, I'll buy that, I'll buy that, right? And they looked at houses and they went, I'm not tied to where I live anymore. I can live anywhere. I think we'll sell our house, make a big killing, and we'll go live over there.
And that's one of the big changes we've seen this year, Gary, is the shift from buying goods like that to buying services. And it's creating some of the friction we're hearing about in the news with places like Amazon reducing their employee count and stuff like that. They adjusted it to the pandemic, and now they're readjusting to reality now.
Yeah. Well, you look at unemployment and you realize that we ended the year again at some of the lowest unemployment numbers in recorded modern history, by the way. So people are employed, right? That's good. They're spending money. GDP is good. All that. Right? You have a good economic. Now, let me back up and just say that they are predicting that unemployment could get as high as 5% this year. But that's not a bad thing. That, again, will slow down inflation. I'm not wishing anybody not to have a job, by the way. I'm just pointing out that from an economic standpoint, just a purist, that's not a bad thing. That's actually a good thing right now. Okay? And then you can see again what kind of happens. And you can look at that and go, wow, okay, 3.6, you're right there. And you can also see the rundown, right? COVID hits, man, we go up to almost 15% unemployment. And then the tail of people getting employed, coming back to work, back to work, back to work, back to work.
It was unusually fast recovery. Like, we got all of those jobs back
by the way,
in 2 years, which usually doesn't happen.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. That's exactly right. Well, I won't go through all the detail, but what Jay is saying is that 2-year recovery never happens. It typically takes 5 to 7 years for what happened in 2 years. That's how fast it came back. That's exactly right. We just wanted to point out to you that when you hear the news and they talk about all the layoffs at Apple or Facebook or Google or anywhere else like that, we just want to point out to you that the NASDAQ only employs 4% of the people in the United States, okay? And by the way, of the 4% they employ, only 1% were laid off. In other words, wah, wah, wah. Makes no.
But,
Yeah, but
What you would think if you're listening to the news, you would go, oh my gosh, everyone's getting laid off. Oh my gosh, look at all the tech layoffs. Look at the tech layoffs. We just wanted to point out to you, tubula boobula, that means nothing. It just doesn't. But again, they'll never say that. The paper won't say it. They won't. Yeah.
Well, even our industry news, if all you did was read the headlines, you would think the whole thing has come to a crashing halt and no one has a job anymore. And it's just not the case.
They don't employ enough people. Let's be honest with you. Personal savings rate. So here's what you need to understand. Look at what started happening around 2010 and how much money people started saving. Look at that. And it reached a crescendo in 2020. Amazing, right? Now, doesn't mean they spent it. What this means is that people aren't saving anymore. They're not. They're spending, as the money comes in, they're spending the money back out again. Okay? And of course, the government has a love affair and a hate affair with that idea, don't they? Because number one, you want people to save money. Number two, you want people to spend money. Hold it, which is it?
They don't want inflation, right? They want to keep things going. They don't want it overheated.
Yeah, thank you. That's right. Yep. And then here we go again, right? And this simply points out that 2% is the inflation line where we want to get to. When you get to 7%, by the way, that's a disaster. And the federal government is going to take as fast action as they can to stop that as fast as possible. And again, they're going to use the cost of money, so any business that's affected by the cost of money is going to be affected. Bam, just like that.
Ruben
go ahead, Jay.
Ruben was teaching us that the Fed has two mandates: stable prices, which basically says fight inflation, and full employment. And we're like, they are very willing to put more people out of jobs to make this number come down, because this is the more dangerous number.
Thank you, Jay. That's exactly right. They will do it. Absolutely. So it's still going to be a rocky ride in 23, because 23 will be a full year of the federal government trying to get control of inflation. They don't want to send the economy into a full-blown recession. The odds are you're going to have one. By the way, by definition, we had one last year, but no one talked about it because all the numbers were good. GDP was good, unemployment was at an all-time low, people were spending money at a decent level afterwards, so they didn't acknowledge the fact that we actually had two back-to-back quarters where GDP was negative. Okay, so this is the money slide. This is a slide that you would normally see, but what we wanted you to see is perspective. So when you look at this, the first thing you go to is the top, and you realize the product or service that has gone up the most, has inflated the most in the last 22 years is medical care in the United States.
Take care of your bodies.
Yeah. But number two is tuition, number three, college tuition, and number three is college textbooks. Right? So if you're in bad health and you're sending kids to college, you're screwed. Medical care services, and oh, by the way, if you have small kids, you have to send them to daycare while you're getting your medical treatments, while you're sending your other kids to college. You got a big problem. Yeah.
And there's that $25 drink right under the wages.
But notice where hourly wages are in relationship to cost, right? Yes. Yeah. If you're not sending kids to college and you're staying as healthy as you can and you don't have kids in daycare, you're looking good. No. That's why we all experience the economy and inflation differently. Depending on where we are in our life is how we experience it. And again, the news doesn't talk about it that way. They paint it all with one big stroke, one big brush, right? Yes.
No, but without this perspective, I think the average person thinks that housing is completely out of whack in what else is going on. The other interesting thing here is you see at the very bottom, you see TV prices and how they have dropped so much. And that's kind of the same thing that you guys are all doing when it comes to technology within the real estate space. How do we have the technology that we need at the lowest possible cost, not the highest?
Yeah. So Jay, you want to run us through this real quick?
We've done this a couple of times. We just want to compare prices to different time periods. So if you take the top line, it's what a car, gas, a house, a mortgage, and your hourly wages were in real dollars. The next line under it, we adjusted it for inflation to today's dollars. The purple line is what it cost in 2022, and now you can compare 1989, right, in that yellow line, to 2022 adjusted for inflation. And the takeaway here is that housing isn't changed as much as people thought. It lines up with that last graph. Your mortgage is only 2% higher in real dollars than it was in 1989.
That's crazy.
It is crazy.
People would say, oh my gosh, it's just gone off the rails. And you go, man, you're only spending 2.8%. Compared to 1989, you're only spending 2.8% more than then. In real dollars, by the way.
So interest rates were higher then. If you go to the next slide, we did the same exercise, but we indexed it back to 2000. And by the way, in 2000, interest rates are about where we are today. So it's now we're really kind of taking that out of the equation. And when you do the same math, you know, our mortgage has gone up about 15% in the last 22 years, which is not a lot in the grand scheme, especially when you look at all the other prices and what they've done.
Well, prices are 50% higher, Jay, but your actual cost that you're paying is only 15%.
Well, that's the beauty of being able to use a mortgage on a home. And that's not a privilege in every country, right? It's actually kind of an amazing thing.
But this is why we want you to buy a house, because your wages haven't kept up. But if you own your house, you're not that unhappy.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
This is the whole point, because appreciation of real estate will always outstrip the growth in hourly wages over time. So if you don't buy and you're just renting, you've got a problem. You're not getting ahead, you're getting behind, right? And in fact, we have a slide later, we're going to show you that, and it'll be one of those money slides as well, okay? Is this good stuff? It's good stuff. Yeah, your head kind of goes, and you start seeing slides in your sleep, you know.
Hey, where do they get these slides, Ruben, just so they can hear it from?
They'll be on KW Connect.
On KW Connect, you can download these so you can work, what Gary said, practice with them and share them with your clients.
Yeah, everyone can go right now and get these slides.
Or soon after this.
Well, how soon after this?
I don't know.
Okay.
By the end of the day, I hope
go get somebody
in KWU a heart attack.
Okay, okay. My guess is in less than a week they'll be there, traditionally.
Easily, I can definitely.
Okay, there you go. There you go. Winner, winner, chicken dinner. We got it. All right, Canadian economy. It's the same story, by the way. GDP has been great. People are but they're overspending. Remember, the number is 2%, not 4.5 and 3.6. That's a lot of spending, right? You look at unemployment, they're running they're the same way, man. It has come down and come down and come down. And notice that 5.3 for Canada, the long-term average is 8.2. So for them, 5.3 is really, really low.
Yeah, they calculated a little bit different than us, Gary. So that really is like a very equivalent number to basically where we are now.
Yeah. They get what they define as unemployed is a different number than the U.S. Yeah, that's exactly right. So it's very commensurate with what we have. By the way, same thing with inflation. It's just gone off the rails. Okay? So let's go back to the U.S. Let's look at U.S. events, and we're going to go through these real quickly, right? The number 10 slide, don't go to sleep. If you're going to go to sleep now, because when we get to 10, I need you to wake up real quick, okay? So if you see someone next to you, let them sleep. But on number 10, wake them up, okay? All right, so sides per agent. Okay, this is where you go boo-hoo, boo-hoo, boo-hoo. Because you look up and you say in 2022, it was 6.3, which is the lowest since recorded. It's never been lower in number of sides. Why? Because NAR, coming out of the Great Recession, added 580,000 agents. And sides dropped from 9.8 to 6.3. The historic average is around 10. Notice how over time, it always finds its way back to that. Just draw your eyes to that and realize it does. Why does it do that? Well, we wrote about that in the book Shift, and that is it's called the law of equilibrium. And that is the number of people that stay in the industry is determined by the amount of money that can be collectively earned. So over time, it just naturally moves to that, okay? So that's all that means. And you can see it. NAR adds people, NAR sheds people, right? Can you see that? So we grow an agent count, and our side number drops to 6.9. Then we, over about a 4-year period, 5-year period, 330,000 get out of the industry in the U.S., and bam, just like that, we're right back to the trend line. And that'll happen again.
We're seeing lots of headlines about people who jumped into real estate, right, because of COVID. They were looking for another way to make money, are realizing this is a pretty tough industry, right? You have to be committed, and they're going back to their day jobs. So we will see this number go down.
Well, yeah, you sit in the house and you watch HGTV during a pandemic, and you think, I can do that, and raise salamanders and then part-time flip houses. Nope, no you can't.
Well, it's a job, and it requires work. And most people come into it and they like the freedom and the flexibility, and they forget it's a job.
Yes.
Yeah, and it has a job description, and most people spend their time trying to figure out how not to do the job description. If you're in a normal job that paid you a salary, you'd have to do it, and if you didn't do it, they'd fire you.
Yes.
In real estate, you just go broke, and then fire yourself.
To save people a little bit of math, to get to that 10 historical average right now, with the same amount of home sales we had last year, you'd have to lose about 500,000 agents.
And we're going to have to lose about 350,000 to 400,000 in order, if nothing else happened, to get back to the 10%, to get to the 10 transactions per side. Yeah, but look, you shed 330,000 before. That's not an unheard of thing to happen. It definitely will happen, okay? Okay, here's the money slide where you have to go, woohoo, woohoo. If we'd gone straight to this slide and told you nothing else, you'd be throwing a party right now. You'd go out, you'd buy extra $25 drinks. It'd be awesome. Well, because look, this is the volume per agent. Forget the 6.3 for a second, which is at the lowest level ever, and notice that you're at the second highest volume per agent ever. Now, you don't get paid per transaction, do you? Yes or no? Yes or no? No, you get paid on the volume you do. If you did 6 deals and they were $10,000 sales each, you'd be broke. It's not numbers of transactions that's important, by the way, of course it is. But you get paid based on the volume of business you do, yes or no? Yes. Okay, wake up. The answer is yes, we do. So when you see that number and you go, holy cow, last year, on a per agent basis, more volume was done in recorded history. There you go. By the way, this year, there's a great likelihood you're going to end up either second or close to second greatest ever. Take whatever commissions that you charge to do your business and multiply it by that number, and that would be the average. Now, are you happy or unhappy? You're a lot happier than you were a little while ago.
Well, I think this is why you said, just because there's less opportunities does not mean that anyone's opportunity is less. And I keep looking at this slide and remembering that.
That's it. That's it. Thank you very much. Yeah. So all this slide points out to you is that we were having lots of price reductions after list because sellers were not getting it. And now we see all of a sudden in December that sellers are getting more realistic on the front end and there's less price reduction.
Can I do a tip of the cap to Chris Cox and our data team? Like, this is all KW data here. A lot of what we show you is NAR data or other sources. We've now got our system dialed in that we're increasingly showing you every MLS data, every transaction, and we can go back to January of 21.
Yeah, now these are not just KW statistics. This is KW.
This is the entire market.
Yeah, I just want to make sure they didn't misunderstand you.
Yeah, we have a representative sample now of the entire U.S.
Yeah, the work that we've done in the last 18 months or so has allowed us now to access all the data across the entire industry and and you'll see more and more of that. You'll see evidence of that today as well. Yeah. All right, so here's another one, and it's the same thing, right? And this is not an exciting number, because what this shows you is that at the end of the year, the number of new listings taken were 126, which means 1 in every 13 agents took a listing. That's what it means. meaning taking listings is harder than ever right now. Getting a saleable listing is harder than it's ever been. You're going to have to work overtime to get it. That's what it means, right? Distress sales, no news here. And that's big news, because if you go back to the last time we saw drops as big as we saw last year, you would have expected distressed sales. But because of the run-up in prices so much, it's a nothing. It's nothing to talk about. Underwater homes, yeah, it's again, you're historically low. You're so far off the average, right? Credit conditions, nothing's going on. They're steady as they go right now. No one's doing any funny business. And that's really important, because the Great Recession was caused mainly because of funny business. Okay? And then you get to this stat and you go, well, there it is. Here's the culprit. And that is, for some strange reason, cities don't understand that they need new homes in order to keep inflation in check. And instead, they just raise the cost of development. They just make it harder and cost more money, because everybody that has a house says, we don't want anyone else to have one. It's kind of what happens, seriously. We don't want them to move here. We want it to look like this. And they forget that what they're actually doing is they're going to create an economic problem down the road, which is exactly what cities do, because they don't pay attention. Take this graphic, go down to your city and say, show me that for our city, and you'll find that you're not building enough houses. And then you'll find that the number one culprit is the policies of the city. In Austin, Texas, they just fired the city manager.
Yep.
Probably showed them that graph. Yeah. And then you see new home sales. And there, again, we've been doing great. These are sales that were not custom. So understand that when you talk about 1 million starts, understand that a third of those are already pre-sold. Or, right, they're custom, or, yeah, okay. So this is the number. So that's all healthy. You've been living in a very healthy new home environment for the last 4 years. It just didn't make up we didn't get ahead at all. So here's the biggest issue, and that's student loan debt.
That's so crazy.
Well, these are your first-time home buyers, and they're now carrying $200 to $300 a month of student loan debt, and it's just ballooning. Right?
In trillions.
Well, we showed you this when we said that the number one rise above all other products and services was the cost of college tuition and textbooks.
It's delaying their first home purchase.
And that's the debt to pay all that.
Yep. It's delaying their first home purchase, right? They're starting later and later.
Did colleges get that much more important? Why is it so much more?
I don't know. We should start the School of Entrepreneurialism, 4-year degree, and make it reasonable.
Yeah. Isn't that the truth? Yeah. Well, if we look at if we look ahead this year and say, okay, what could derail us? What would be the things that we just need to keep an eye on? Number one would be any further escalation in Ukraine, because that could destabilize so much, from oil and gas to wheat, you name it. I mean, there are products coming out of that region that make a difference. And then, of course, you have the resurgence of inflation. In fact, something weird happens. Instead of getting it under control this year, something weird happens and it goes up. If that happens, all bets are off. So just keep an eye on that number. All bets are off. If you see that that's not happening, all bets are on. Okay? And debt ceiling brinkmanship, right? You already see the posturing between the Republican and Democratic parties over what are we going to do, right? Democrats say that, the president says, that's foolishness. You shouldn't play with the debt ceiling. The Republican Party says, are you kidding me? That's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to hold you hostage. And they're going to posture all the way up until the day. And hopefully they'll figure that out, right? But here's the reality is, if you want to solve the debt problem of America, then fund the IRS and go collect all the fair taxes that are owed. I mean, but they defund the IRS. By the way, this isn't a political statement, but because we have defunded the IRS, we don't collect the money that's owed. Do you pay your fair taxes, yes or no?
Those of you that pay.
I'm not talking. I'm not talking to you then. But I understand that if you pay your fair amount of taxes, there are a lot of people that don't. And that debt is caused by the lack of collecting fair taxes that are on the books and that are owed. I'm just telling you, that's a fact. It's not a political statement, right? If we could just get them to fund enough the IRS to go get that money, you know, we wouldn't have this problem. Number 4, political tensions with China. Yeah, there's a wild card there. I mean, if there's another 80 balloons show up and we shoot them down, you know, it could be a...
Tensions have been ballooning between us and China.
Oh, it's good. It's good.
And then continuing environmental concerns. Look, I don't care who caused it, but there is climate change. Just come to my house and look at all the trees that are freezing. I mean, it's unreal. Climate change is very real. And by the way, it's going to destabilize cities. It will destabilize cities. And it can destabilize a government overnight.
Well, and you can also have an immediate disaster, which changes the economic future in a moment in those places, and those are happening more and more often. So we have to be cognizant of it.
So here's the slide. So this is another one of those slides you want to, when you download this material, go grab this slide. And this is us, you know, trying to understand. So compare owning and renting, okay? And the premise here is that you took the money you saved in renting and you invested it. That's what it means, okay?
Well, the genesis of this was a YouTube video that somebody sent us where the guru was making the argument that buying a home is dumb. This is a person, by the way, that speaks at real estate companies, so I don't even get me started. But that was the point they were making. That
sure, well, they've been writing those books for years, though. I mean, for decades and decades, that owning was stupid. But it's not true. It never has been true. The premise they make, though, is they say, well, yeah, but if you rented and then invested the difference, you'd be better off. So we ran that trap as well, and that proves not to be true, right? Just pure renting, you can see the difference, 234 versus 106. By the way, if you invested it, it's still 66. You don't come out ahead. You should own. But here's an interesting thing, and Jay pointed this out. The first 3 years, right? The first year, renting is a better deal. Second year, it's slightly better. Third year, you've caught up. By the third year, and from that moment on, owning is going to always outstrip renting. Always. That's the graphic, and that's what you show the first-time home buyer who says, I'm going to wait. And you go, you need to get your 3 years started. You keep pushing it off, and it doesn't change. It'll start the second that you buy. So when you don't buy, you're just pushing this back. That's the slide you put in front of every one of them, right? That was my whole deal. I worked with first-time home buyers. A lot of my transactions, because of my age, were first-time home buyers my first year. And I had a graphic just like this that I did, renting versus owning, and I just slid it in front of them.
Yeah, if you were hosting a first-time home buyer seminar, this would be the slide you'd show.
Sure. Yeah. Well,
this doesn't even include the interest tax deductions.
No. By the way,
it's even better than that.
That did not include in America. You get an interest deduction. This does not include that. That's not calculated into that savings, by the way. Okay, so luxury, real quickly. Number one, there's more wealthy people than ever. Good news, right? Yeah, it took a huge jump last year. Number two, the allocation of their investments, pretty steady Eddie. And that is real estate is in that, I would say real estate is in that 15%. Some will make it 20 to 25%. Others will make it 10% or so, but it averages at about 15%. So it is one of the places that people put money. Wealthy people put their money into real estate, okay? Number three, just days on market, and that is you can see going back to the beginning of the year to now, and that is they're staying on the market. But understand, during the Great Recession, Monica, what was it, 2 years?
Yeah.
It was 2 years to sell a luxury home in the Great Recession. If you weren't around then, that's how long it took. Okay? All right, let's look at commercial real quick and just go through the trends. Number one, office remains in limbo as companies try to figure out what the new normal is going to be, right? Hybrid, everybody in, nobody in. Ultimately, it's going to reduce the square foot per worker. We know that's going to happen. And so they'll have to work that out. Industrial continues to be driven by the growth of e-commerce, right? The supply chain reinforcement will also drive new project demand. So industrial is a great place. Retail will remain fairly stable because they didn't build any more of it in the last decade. There's very little built, right? So anyway, you have that. And then multifamily, a large number of new units are coming on the market in 2023. 529,000 were started in 2022, right? Yep. Okay. Industry. So 2 quick slides on this, and that is, and we show this every year, but people forget that we tend to overestimate the short term, and then we completely underestimate the long term. But what you see happening again is a convergence. When you hear firms like Zillow talk about the great app, right? The
super app.
The super app. What they're talking about is pulling all of this into one experience. And so that's the movement of the industry, and it's going to keep this is going to keep happening. Okay. In interesting industry events last year, I don't want to spend much time on this, but iBuyers exiting or pivoting. You know, you would have thought that the iBuyers 2 years ago were the smartest, most brilliant people in the entire industry, right? They got front stage. I remember Eric Wu, who is no longer running that company. I remember Eric came to Austin, and a group of us met with him. And at one point, Mitch, you remember this, I asked him, what are you going to do when we go into a downturn? And he gave a really sophisticated, algorithmic answer of how they knew how to figure that out and weather that. How'd that work out? He didn't work there anymore, and he didn't know what he was talking about. But in the short term, people that sound good can make you look stupid. But truths are truths. They don't change over time.
Yeah, I think someone in the industry had said that would have accounted for 50% of all the transactions, and that was going to happen prior to the end of 2022. And that didn't work out.
There's been more money lost in that segment than any other segment. Yeah. Yep, okay. Shift hammers the industry stocks and leads to layoffs. Yep, that definitely happened. Right, and again, yeah, I'm not going to get into that. You know that story. Zillow refocuses on their core products and their super app. Yep, they're going to do that. They're going to be relentless. CoStar out there trying to buy Realtor.com. I guess the whole HomeSnap, Homes.com, Apartments.com, that didn't get them where they wanted to go. Yeah. After a lot of, again, it's amazing what people will come on stage and say, and then no one tracks what actually happens. Right, everybody gets worked up over what they're saying. But anyway, they're going to be. My prediction is they're going to be relentless. You know, they're very focused on getting into the residential real estate business. Boomtown gets bought by Inside Real Estate. So I would say that the point here, what's really fascinating, is there's only 3 major real estate companies today that actually own their own tech at scale. Major companies at scale. That would be Redfin, Compass, and Keller Williams. Everybody else capitulated. They all stopped. And there's a truth, write it down, you heard it here, but there's a truth, and that is there is no great company on the planet that rents their tech. There isn't any. If you're renting your tech, you're now being controlled by who's renting it, who you're renting it from, sorry. Yeah. And so owning it, and it's not cheap, by the way, owning your own tech is really expensive, right? We saw Compass try to build a CRM and they couldn't do it. They had $1.5 billion and they still couldn't build a CRM that worked. They had to ditch it and go buy Contactually and then retrofit it. It's really hard to do this. It's really hard. Yeah.
Yeah, well, and the key there is when that happened, we had people that were using Contactually that called and said, oh my gosh, it's sold. And the exact same thing happened this time. We had Boomtown users that called and said, oh my gosh, it's sold. And it's going to keep happening.
Yeah. And look, it was hard for us. We stumbled. We made a lot of mistakes. We screwed up. We had to stand up, apologize. We had to go to the sideline. We are back, by the way. It does work. Yeah. Yeah, it does. It does. And it does exactly what it's supposed to do. Okay? And we did it in record time. Historically, there is no other real estate company on the planet within literally less than a 36-month period went from scratch to building what we built. Nobody, by the way, has done that. Because I'm just trying to explain. Because what we built was actually a platform. It's not a CRM. We keep saying Command's a CRM. Actually, it's not. It's not. And we'll talk about that today a little bit. Anyway, ChatGPT and AI, pretty interesting, right? Who knows? Right now, it does interesting things. It doesn't get it all right, and then sometimes it does. Will it actually change the very nature of all search? I don't think so. But then again, that's not a popular answer. Everybody else wants to think that it's going to set everybody's hair on fire and destroy the world. And I think it will be really valuable and really cool, and it's not going to do as much. And then the last one, of course, is just the great real estate tech pivot, where everybody pivoted, right? And started renting. Okay, so real quickly, we're going to go through this and we're going to move on. So NAR puts out a study. We kind of we go through there. We pull out the slides that we think matter most to you. The first slide that we think is important for you to pay attention to is the percent of homes that are being sold to first-time home buyers is at an all-time low. Well, we're not surprised, are we? No, they have more college debt than ever before, and the home prices have gone up greater than ever before. Interest rates have gone up, and it's harder to buy, so they're postponing that. We need to get that up. By the way, you can go back and lobby in your markets. Get your cities, we did this back in the 80s, in 1980, go get your city to issue bonds at lower rates for first-time home buyers and literally get that going. You can do that. I think you're going to see that. All right, primary reason for purchasing a home, it hasn't really changed a whole lot. It's desire to own a home, be close to friends and family, be in a better area, move to a smaller house / retirement, or desire for a larger house, or something's changed in the family, job related, right? These are all the reasons. And by the way, these are your targets. These motives stay true no matter the economy. Nowhere in here did they answer because it was cheap. There's not an answer on there that says that. So when you go pull this slide down out of the deck, pull it out and look at it and realize when you're creating your messages to the market, you can target individuals that have these things going on in their life, because when it's their time, they're buying. When it's their time, they're going to buy, you guys.
Well, that was a point that Jay made, which is that all of the slides that you're seeing right now, he said you should take these and sit down tomorrow and get your buyer presentation and your seller presentation and make sure that what you're saying matches what they want to hear and what you're highlighting matches what's important to them. And
that's right.
Should happen every year.
Yep, tenure in a previous home, median was 10. And that's what you want to look at, right?
I think one thing that's interesting on that tenure in previous home, 25% was 21 years or more. And the previous slide, we don't have to go back. There are a lot of people moving closer to family and going for smaller homes. I was talking to Dan Ahara, who runs the Real Estate Planners. It might be the first signs of a demographic shift. A lot of boomers wanting to downsize, and that might be a market of opportunity in the next year or two.
Oh, I don't think there's any question about that. What's interesting, though, is people always get it wrong, because when surveyed, they're always 50% off. They think they're going to stay longer than they will. Okay, sure. Weeks in a home search, nothing new here, which is really fascinating, right? There's really no fundamental difference between 8 or 10. There's just no fundamental difference, right?
How could that not change? Why is it always?
Because people want to see houses and they want to think about it.
Yep.
That's it, right? First step of the home buying process, they go online. And we know that. I always laugh and go, why isn't that 100%? Because if I want deodorant, my answer is 100%. I go online. So there's something interesting about the way they ask those questions. But going online, and by the way, it doesn't mean they went online to Zillow. They might have gone online to your site, depending on how you marketed your site.
That's what you love about Chris Cox, because as soon as Chris saw this, he immediately went and revamped agent sites, which you're all going to see here and you're going to have.
Yeah, because it does matter. That's exactly right. And then contacted a real estate agent, contacted a mortgage lender, right? Looked online for information about the buying process, right? This again, this is the slide you want to take. You want to look at it and go, well, this is their steps. I need to go be where they are. Yes?
Yes.
The answer is yes. They're telling you, it's almost like the fish raising their hand, Jay, and going, I'm over here. Throw me a line. Yeah. Information sources buyers use. Real estate agent? Wow. Congratulations. You're the #1 source that people use. So even if they look at real estate for, or they start their journey in all these different ways, who do they end up going to? The real estate agent, right? And by the way, they're going to also go online. Absolutely. Right? Where buyers found the home they purchased, 51% on the internet. But again, the way they ask that question can mislead you, right? Doesn't mean that you didn't send them there, that they weren't using your mobile app. It doesn't mean that they went off by themselves, right? Because most real estate agents will say, let me set you up on a saved search program, and then, right, we'll mine that together, right?
Heard Jason saying, this is how you go to your listing and say, this is how I'm going to market your home. This is where buyers are finding them, and this is how we're going to market your home, and go point by point. And guess what? They can pay for their own home book or magazine, because that's not where buyers are finding it.
Yeah, you're going to have an online presence, right? You need to go out, knock on doors, make TCP compliant, right? Knocking on doors and calling people, by the way. Don't violate the law, right? But go out and by the way, hold open houses. I mean, this is your list of where people are. The value of website features, they want photos, they want detailed property information, they want floor plans, they want your contact information. How odd is that? Right? Yeah, literally #4. Yeah. Details about recently sold properties, neighborhood info. This is your checklist for having a site or information that people want.
Well, by the way, on that one, we've been watching floor plans slowly tick up. So if you're still not doing a floor plan as one of your photos, you're making a giant mistake.
Yeah. Yeah, method of home purchase. What's the biggest one? Agent. By the way, we saw an uptick last year because we saw the greatest boom coming out last year, the beginning of the year, right? So for the first 6 months of last year, FSBOs took off crazy. We hadn't seen that in 15, 16 years, right? But that's going to stop again quick, right? They're going to use a real estate agent, by the way, right? But this
is so crazy.
Yeah, the thing here is that, and we say this every year from the stage, you don't just take listing you don't get listing agreements for sellers, you also get buyer agreements with buyers. And what's crazy is that real estate agents go work with buyers and they don't get an agreement signed. What's wrong with you? Why would you do that?
I don't understand.
Well, I'll tell you why. I tell you why. Well, because you haven't learned the reasons why you should. You haven't learned the presentation. Because if you make a reasonable presentation to someone about, if you want me to represent you, I need you to sign a representation agreement, they almost all go, okay. Because it says they can get out. They sign it. And yet look at it. Most of you are operating all day long without one. God, can I just say that that's unprofessional?
Yes, you can.
All right, what buyers want from their agent? Duh, they want you to find them the house. Then they want you to negotiate the sale terms and the price. They want you to handle the paperwork, and they want you to make sure you're connected with the best financing, right?
Well, and this links directly, because 49% of them simply want help finding the right home. And they all end up as the number one source, the internet. So anybody that has a buyer, whether it's an A buyer all the way through Z, that has to be on a saved search through your system.
Everybody should be on a safe search.
Everybody.
Everybody in your database should have a safe search for something. That's exactly right. Yes. How buyers found their agent. 38% were referred by a friend, neighbor, relative. 12% used them before. They inquired about specific property viewed online. They went to their website. They saw contact information, right? What's fascinating is, and we're going to see this in a second, is that 12% that they used them before is obscene. It's obscene. We'll get to in a second why it's obscene. Buyer interviews. You got to be number one. So remember, lead generation is about what? Speed. The whole point of lead generation is if you're number two, you have a less likely chance. If you're number three, you're out. Right? And what it also says is that the buyer and seller aren't that judgmental. If 67% of the time they're hiring the first person that they talk to, they can't be that discerning. Well, that's good news for you if you're a dumbass. Even if you didn't learn anything, if you just went out there and got there first, they went, it's a realtor. I'm hiring you. Don't print that.
Well, there it is. We'll change the name to the dumbass slide and move on.
I'm just saying, I'm simply saying that it's a JOB and it requires WORK, and you heard it from Laurie, and that is get out there and get there first. Have a nice day. Everything else is downhill. Everything else is downhill. Okay? All right. All this says is that yes, the public thinks it's a good investment. And here's what's interesting. 60% think it's better than stocks. 32% think it's about as good. Only 8% think that stock's better than real estate. That's the product that you help people buy and sell. That's you. That's you. And that's what the public thinks about that. So here we go. Buyer repeats and referrals, right? This asks the question, would you definitely use your realtor again? 76% said yes. Would you probably? 13% said that. So 89% said they would use you again, and only 12% actually do. Why? Because you don't stay in contact because you don't use your CRM.
We've got a smart plan for that.
Yep. We do. Well, this is where technology, no. Thank you for saying that. This is where technology does what your personality won't regularly do. That's why you get technology, because it'll just automate it and it will just run and it will do the staying in contact for you, and then you could,
But the delta between those two numbers, the 12% that do and the 89% that said they would, is all of the missing income in all of our lives. It's the family vacations, it's the rental properties.
When I got in real estate, the thing that got me the most excited was when I discovered those statistics. Because I figured that everyone that owned a home would just use their realtor again when they sold it. And how am I ever going to get a listing? Right? And the same with buyers. You look up and you go, well, they already know a realtor.
Well, Lori said it. It's not the shortage isn't in leads, it's in our efforts.
Yeah, right? I looked up and I went, holy cow, agents don't follow up. This is a gold mine.
And nothing has changed.
Nothing has changed.
Because you got into the industry and I was busy being born, and everything is the same since then.
Yeah. Well, and look at that again. 90%, right? 90% are either satisfied or somewhat satisfied, right? On the seller's side, It's 91%.
Well, in this slide, anyone that tries to convince you that people don't like real estate agents or doing business with us, pull out that slide and give them that perspective. Yeah. They love the support and the value that you provide.
Yeah.
Yep.
How they found their agent? Again, realize that referral always shows up as the #1 source for buyers and sellers. Meaning that when you have a database, it's not necessarily for you to do business directly with those people. It's what?
Referrals.
For them to refer you. And you have to behave in a manner so that they like you and feel so good about you that they think of you the way they think of a good book or a good streaming show that they watched on Netflix, right? Because the next day, everyone goes, well, what are you watching? What are you watching? Hey, I'm watching this, you're watching that. Have you read a good book? I'm reading this book, you're reading that book. And people naturally promote things that they don't get paid for, and we do it all day long. Have you been to this restaurant? Have you blah, 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 blah? Have you had that $25 drink, right? Yeah, and we promote it because, hey, we want you to have a good experience. They do the same with real estate. When you do your job, when you provide value to individuals, whether they're buying or selling or not, that's what happens, right? Seller interviews, same thing. 91% only talk to 2 people. 91% talk to 2 people. It's speed to lead. It's speed to lead, by the way, which is why, and we have this data from Steve and Rise, and that is you got to get there first, man. And we're talking about 10 seconds.
Seconds.
We're talking about seconds. When that lead comes across, if you don't grab it, you fail the speed to lead. And you're thinking, good God, you mean it comes down to 10 seconds? Actually, yes, it does. Yes, it does. Okay? It does.
But this is also why
you got to go. You got to grab it.
It's also why our friend Greg loves this so much, because he figures if I can get there first and I can solve a problem at scale that every seller has, I win every time.
Yeah. What do they want from you? Same thing. They want you to price it competitive. Blah, blah, blah. We know all of this. This is your list. This is your listing presentation, right? And the only thing that I would add to this is we told you yesterday is take how you do it and name it and call it a program. Don't walk in and just say, I'm personally going to do these things.
I checked with the 72 sold team. The first 4 categories are the first 4 priorities in their program. They just hit those notes in that order as hard as they can.
Well, that's it, because there's only 2 ways to sell. Solve a problem everybody has or present an opportunity that everybody wants. That's what they do.
By the way, seller, they used the source of hiring an agent was 27% of the time was repeat business. Right, they used them again.
85 would.
85 said they would. So 85% of the time, seller says, I would use them again or refer them. Okay? It only happens 22% of the time. Is it 22%?
It's so crazy, and that's why we've been running around the country and saying the same thing, which is that every seller should be on a monthly neighborhood nurture. And the definition of a seller is anyone that lives in a house.
Yeah, 86% last year. Again, the FSBO jumped last year. They're using realtors, by the way. Incentives, there were no incentives, by the way. That probably changes sometime in 23.
This survey ended in July, so it doesn't take the second half of the year. We know that there were.
Yep, and we always, for you, just run out and talk about what the average commissions are. That's for sellers, and that's for buyers.